Mr. Chairman, sir, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity on such a momentous occasion. I would right at the outset compliment the government for having organized this 150th birthday celebrations of Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore in such manner and involving Bangladesh, which is the other part of the legacy of Rabindranath Tagore. The whole of India, and the Bangladesh, and undivided India as a whole benefited from Tagore's philosophy, his visionary nature, and I would say most importantly, Rabindranath Tagore was an architect of modern India. He was an architect of modern India, not in the sense of a political person, but in terms of spirituality and the development of the modern India. সভাপতি মহাশয়, আমি এই বক্তব্য আজকে রাখতে চাই কারণ এখনো পর্যন্ত মন্ত্রী প্রণব মুখোপাধ্যায় এবং আমার অন্য সহযোগীরা যা বক্তব্য রেখেছেন তাইতে ওনাকে আমরা শ্রদ্ধা জানিয়েছি এবং পুরো সদন পুরো রাজ্যসভা এই ব্যাপারে একমত এবং পুরো দেশ একমত যে এটা একটা এমন সময় যেখানে রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরকে স্মরণ করে আমরা ভারতীয় জাতীয়তাবাদ এবং ভারতীয় মহামানবকে একটা শ্রদ্ধাঞ্জলি অর্ঘ্য দিচ্ছি। আমি দু একটা additional point I would like to make, sir, that Rabindranath Tagore was a person who was ahead of his time. Some points have been made by my honorable colleagues, Mr. Shukhendra Shekhar Roy, Shri Prashant Chatterjee, they have all mentioned this. But I think, you see, so many years ago, after all, let us not forget that he died 71 years ago from now, and when society was so conservative, it was shackled in prejudices. And what does he write in his lifetime? He says, Esho Brahmon, Shuchi Kori Mon, Dhoro Hat Shobakar, Esho He Potit, Kori Oponit, Shobo Opoman Bhar. He talks about that equality. He calls upon Brahmin in the sense of the higher castes to come with a pure mind and hold the hands of the lowest of the low, whom you have kept in prejudice and bondage. He says, He mor durbhaga desh, jahader koriyacho opoman, opomane hote hobe tahader sokoler soman. This modern outlook, this move against casteism and caste prejudice is something which often gets overlooked, sir. But I think this was one of his great contributions. Women's emancipation. Rabindranath Tagore was one of the greatest champions of women's emancipation when it was far from fashionable. His novels, Noshto Need, which many members may have seen as Satyajit Ray's famous and highly celebrated film Charulata, is a reflection of his modern thinking on women's emancipation. His other novel, Ghore Baire, which was also made into a film by Satyajit Ray, echoes the same theme. His whole idea of the Mahamanav, sir, requires some thought and what its contribution has been to the making of the Indian mind. Mahamanav is not to be literally translated as a superman of sorts. He is not Nietzsche's Superman. He is not macho. He is not a world conqueror. He is spiritual. That Indian soul, the Indian mind is spiritual and inclusive. So he writes, Hemor Chitto Punno Tirthe Jagore Dhire, Ei Bharoter Mohamanober Sagor Tire. And then goes on, Keho nahi jane kar aobhane koto manusher dhara durbar srote elo kotha hote সমুদ্র হলো হারা হেথায় আর্য হেথা অনার্য হেথায় দ্রাবিড় চীন শখুন দল পাঠান মোগল এক দেহে হলো লীন পশ্চিম আজি খুলিয়াছে দ্বার সেথা হতে সবে আনি উপহার দেবে আর নেবে মিলাবে মিলিবে সাগর তীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে. Sir, what is the essence of this? He says in India, People have come from all over the world. Aryans, non-Aryans, Dravids, people from China, and they've all assimilated to create this great Indian mind, assimilative, inclusive, and expansive. So this is ahead of its time, and this is something that we must never forget when we are observing his 150th birth anniversary. Sir, his ode to Shivaji, his ode to Banda Bahadur, and the struggle, Guru Tegh Bahadur, and where he writes an ode, pens an ode to the creation of the Khalsa, shows the openness of his mind. Sir, he is one of the most widely travelled person of his time and probably of all times. He went to Ramgarh in what is now Uttarakhand when it was not accessible by road. He rode horseback and went there, and which is where he wrote the bulk of Gitanjali. Sir, he went to Shiraz in Iran, and that is preserved still as one place where Rabindranath Tagore visited. Sir, he went to Bali. In Bali, I went to Bali and I found that he is held in such reverence that Rabindranath Tagore, the great Rabindranath Tagore, came and spent some time here. Sir, and finally, the last point I would like to make is that, of course, anti-colonialism is a point that Mr. Prashant Chatterjee has mentioned. I don't want to add to anything more except that Swadeshi movement, he was in a sense the spiritual father of the Swadeshi movement, and in that sense a spiritual father of the early age of Indian nationalism. Sir, I'm finishing. So his anti-colonialism, we mentioned that how he rejected knighthood, how he spurned the British, how he wrote to the Viceroy, but you know, the angst of the nation, the pain that he brought out in a poem that he wrote immediately after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre is worth, sir, remembering and quoting. He asks, Bhagavan, tumi juge juge doot pathayecho bare bare dayahin সংসারে তারা বলে গেল ক্ষমা করো সবে বলে গেল ভালোবাসো. Those angels who you sent God to the world spread the message of peace and brotherhood and forgiveness. They said, forgive them, love everyone. I'll skip the middle part, and this he concludes by saying, in the light of the massacre, lupto korecho amar bhubon dushapne tole, you have destroyed my world in a nightmare. Tai to tomay shudhai ashru jale. He's asking God, so I ask you, God, with tears in my eyes, jahara tomar bishayeche bayu nibhayeche tobo alo, tumi ki tader khoma koriyacho, tumi ki beshecho bhalo. You have taught, God, you've taught us the lesson of peace, forgiveness. But those who have polluted your air, who have snuffed out the light from so many lives, God, tell me, have you forgiven them? Have you forgiven them? Have you loved them? Can you possibly forgive them? Can you possibly love them? Sir, this is a great moment that the whole country is united in paying homage to possibly India's greatest spiritual thinker and the maker of the modern Indian soul. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.